name is Norm Volsky, your host, and this is the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast.
Thanks, Norm. It's an honor to be here, and it's been fun to work with you over the years.
Hello, and welcome to the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast with your host, Norm Volsky. And today we are very excited to have a friend of the show. Welcome, Cody Fair, the Chief Commercial Officer at Noom.
Thank you, Norm. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you. So Cody started out at Noom as their head of employer sales before getting promoted in the last handful of months to Chief Commercial Officer. Before he joined Noom, he was the VP of Commercial Growth at Springbuck. And before that was Director of Major Market Sales, where he cut his teeth in employee benefits and HR sales over at Paychex. So really excited to have Cody on the podcast. For all of those that don't know, Noom is a $3.7 billion digital health unicorn that has changed the lives of so many through their weight loss management platform using behavioral science to empower people to take control of their health. So love having Cody on the show. He could talk to us about all things digital health and unicorns and epic growth and employers and all the fun stuff. So Cody, let's dive in. Walk us through your early sales career at Paychex.
Absolutely. I always kind of say it was my first big boy sales job, let's say. So I started out carrying a bag, in that world, you typically are assigned a few zip codes. So in Indianapolis, where I'm at, I started out selling for a couple of years, moved into a selling sales manager role where I had a few reps reporting to me, but still had a territory. And then after that, moved up to a district sales manager. And then my last couple of years, I had the Midwest. So I had, I think, like 9 managers and close to 90 reps or so that reported to me. But it was a great learning experience and something that I really believe if you're just starting out in sales, a large organization like a Paychex that really dives in and provides training is a great place to start a sales career.
I love that. You made the transition over to Springbuck. What was the rude awakening of going into pure benefit sales and leading teams? Like, what was the adjustment period? Because I'm sure when you were at Paychex, just wearing the polo, having that on your business card probably got you an invite into the room. I don't think Springbuck, at the beginning probably had that cachet. It was probably scratching and clawing for every meeting. Walk us through that experience.
Yeah, it was part of why I wasn't actively looking to leave Paychex. My future was kind of laid out in front of me. Paychex in general has really long tenured employees, and that's kind of where I was at. But they also had everything built, right? They've been around for 40 years. They were a multi-billion-dollar company. And I'm someone that kind of looks at a situation and wants to figure out how I can make it better. And they're kind of like, yeah, we've been doing it for 40 years. Like, we got it. We're just manage the people and understandably so. So the CEO at the time, Rod Reason, had reached out to me from Springbuck. And it was kind of everything that I always had said that I wanted. That if I was going to go somewhere different, I wanted it to where my contributions materially affected the company in a good or even negative way. Where, I'd love to tell you the wheels fell off at Paychex after I left, but, they were just fine and are a multi-billion dollar company, even more so since I left.
That means you managed people well and you taught them what you knew. And when you left, like the people under
they
you
just
were
carried on,
able
right?
to step up and produce. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. You go from a place like a Paychex where everybody on earth, when you call, they know who you are. They've potentially used you at one point. When you call from Springbuck, the comment, what is Springbuck? What is that? What's the name? What do you do? But I found that, and it's kind of where my passion is, I think, will be in digital health and kind of the scale up environment for the rest of my career. Like I said, I really like looking at a situation, figuring out what we can do better and kind of building the plane as you fly it, so to speak. Because of that, I think you get to do things far outside of just the typical, like what you would think a sales manager, sales leader does.
Yeah, 100%. What are the key differences between the classic HR tech sale and selling like health and benefits?
Yeah, I think that the HR tech sale, in my eyes, had kind of become a commodity. It was an ADP and Paycor and Paycom. Everybody kind of did the same stuff, right? Like it was really focused on maybe like the one feature that we
Hmm.
had that somebody else didn't, and some of those things. Where this is a much different sale. Like first of all, like before I would have a couple zip codes. In this world, you have multiple states. You're typically working with much larger employers,
Hmm.
but there is an increased focus on the outcomes of your product, where that I would say was never really the focus before. It was
Hmm.
just about getting payroll done or allowing people to enroll in benefits. Where this is really focused on the outcomes and ultimately if you're changing the member's life positively.
Yeah, the way I look at it is if you're successful in that environment, the, very competitive legacy space, very little differentiation, somewhat commoditized, what it shows me is you're really accountable. If you're consistently successful, you can slightly differentiate. You can really like do well with the X's and O's because you're outperforming your competition from an output standpoint, from a quality standpoint, whatever it is. Like your sales foundation is very strong
Yeah.
if you come from that background and are ultra successful. The challenge becomes, can that person think creatively? Can they strategically move chess pieces around and convey value when they sell something that isn't a must have, it's a nice to have?
Mhm.
And can they sell against not only the direct competitors, but can they sell against the other potential investments a buyer might be considering? So it's a very different thing where it's like, okay, one shows you have the hustle, you have the grind, you have the ability to stay organized, you can pound the phones, you can get a lot of output done, you're a grinder, all those things, but you need both to do something at a startup where you're kind of building the plane as you fly it, so to speak, as you mentioned. So, what are other things you think if you were to hire exclusively from HR tech or another market for that matter that isn't benefits? What are the things you'd look for that would give you a high degree of confidence that they could make the transition?
Yeah. To me, cultural fit is the number one thing that I'm
Mhm.
personally looking for.
And
Uh,
you've hired some great people over the last 6 months, like
Yeah,
Noom
we
has
have
gotten
been
some
lucky,
studs.
and I certainly appreciate your all's help. We have
You needed
landed
our
some,
help for a couple of them. A lot of them you didn't, so that's okay too.
but yeah, we are fortunate. I think I made a post on LinkedIn the other day. We got our entire team together in Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah.
and there is an incredible amount of talent here that I could not be more excited about. But I think even more importantly, they fit culturally. And
Mhm.
the transition from like a Paychex or ADP publicly traded company where there's process and structure for everything that you would ever need in coming here, I think that's why you have to make sure it's a culture fit. You have to make
Mhm.
sure that you find someone that is comfortable being uncomfortable, that we don't have all of the answers today, or there's not a
Mhm.
process for everything. And that's something that I really lean into. And I would tell you, probably to a fault, my interviews are pretty laid back because I
Mhm.
really am just trying to figure out, is this someone that, I'd want to hang out with, go out and have a drink or, whatever it might be, go to dinner, because I think it is important. The reality is we're going to spend more time together at work than we probably do with our families a lot of times. And if you have a team that likes each other, that likes being around each other, and wants to work together, channel conflict and things like that, they just don't matter, right? Because we're all bought into where we're trying to go as a company and we're focused on getting there. And so I really look at that cultural fit and then, like, call it the sub bullet off of that. Like, are you comfortable in this type of environment? Because there's incredible sales reps that just would not be comfortable in this environment. They
Yeah.
prefer the structure and everything already done.
And I think the other thing that you said that, kind of popped into my mind, you're like, oh, I want to hire people that I want to spend my time with. Those are the type of people the intended buyers want to buy from.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, right?
So there's a direct correlation between that. What were your biggest successes and the things you're most proud of from your time at Paychex before entering? the digital health world?
Yeah, I think the things I was most proud of was I'd never managed before. I was fortunate to get the opportunity after a couple years. So I was really proud of the growth that I had, kind of my career trajectory. I
Mhm,
was told I was the youngest area VP at one point in time. I have no idea, frankly, if that's true, but it stuck with me. So let's hope it was.
mhm,
But I was just really happy of that I was able to develop my career. There's some people that go into sales and want to carry a bag for the rest of the career, and it's the perfect role for them. Mine was always to move into a leadership kind of
mhm,
management role. And then I think because of that, I look at a lot of the team that I worked with there. Some of them I still work with today that have followed me to multiple places, but you can see a lot of them having great success in their career. And
mhm.
that's certainly something that makes me happy that hopefully, I had a small little piece of something to do with that. But they're able to support their families and make a great living.
Yeah, you mentioned that with Springbuck, like everything lined up. It was exactly what you were hoping for and what you wanted as the next step. What about the company and what they're doing and what industry they were in factored in to being that the one you jumped for? Because you could have stayed at Paychex your whole career.
Yeah. So, like I said, I wanted to go somewhere where my contributions meant something. And it offered me that opportunity. Healthcare is always where I wanted to be. So, from a pretty young age, I won't go too long into the story, but I used to get allergy shots every week. And
Mhm,
this was where you went into the local, kind of hospital, you got your shot, and then you had to wait 30 minutes to see if there was a reaction. And there was a guy there that ran the pharmacy inside the hospital. And I would spend that 30 minutes every week hanging out with him.
mhm,
He was a Purdue grad, which is where I went to school. My sister's 5 years older. I think through that, we spent every week there. That's the direction we went. So my sister went
mhm,
to pharmacy school, got her doctorate from Purdue, has been in the industry ever since. I started out there, did not make it through. So take that for what it is. I have a years long, let's say, pharmacy degree, but I moved to the business end of it. And my plan was always, like, at that time, pharmaceutical sales was a lot bigger. It was going to be that or medical device. And when I went and kind of shadowed my sister out at these pharma companies, they said, you need to start at Paychex or ADP, that they train everybody better. So that's where we hire our reps from. And that's
yeah.
actually what led me to Paychex. And I stayed there longer than I had planned. It was going to be a 2-year stop, but everything was working out. And so Springbuck kind of afforded me the opportunity to truly get back to healthcare, which had always been the plan for years and years. So it was kind of a coming full circle, I guess.
Yeah. And when you joined Springbuck, it was pretty early, in that industry's growth trajectory. What was the world of health benefits data analytics like when you joined? And kind of how did you get that more in vogue by the time you left and joined Noom?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if data analytics will ever be in vogue, so to speak, but we did our part.
It's
It
not the
was, I'll say
sexiest thing,
this.
but it's functional and it brings
Yeah,
value.
yeah. It was far more difficult than I ever imagined going in. Just
Mhm,
the depth of knowledge needed to sell. You had individuals looking at it from a financial perspective, others from a clinical, others wanting to see if different point solutions were providing ROI. And you really needed a really in depth level of knowledge, which I enjoyed, that you were always learning there. It was never where you got to the point and, you
mhm,
knew everything. It was a lot of education in the early days, especially where the market we were selling into was a fairly green space and not employers or broker consultants that had been utilizing a data
mhm,
analytics platform previously. So Springbuck had a pretty great approach to it. They made it attainable from all. You didn't have to have a master's in informatics and all of that. So it really was. I think Springbuck and the broader team was a big part in that industry becoming what it is today. It's still
mhm.
very, very difficult, but I think you see employers understanding and wanting to have access to their healthcare data to prove out, some of the ROI of what they're doing, and also understand where they should go next and focus their time.
What was some of your other major challenges outside of it just not necessarily being something that was on the radar?
Yeah. I'd say data analytics by its nature creates more work. So part of what we did was we would uncover that you have all of these diabetics with a gap in care, you had these other issues. We didn't actually solve the issue. We just told you it was there, right?
Mhm.
So that presents two things: is that one, there's, everybody wants to see an ROI. There's not necessarily an ROI, because if you would buy the platform and do nothing with it, there's never going to be a return.
Yeah.
So us by nature essentially created more work. Now, the employers that really embraced that, that's where they made decisions on what programs they were going to bring in next, where they were going to focus their time and energies. But that was part of it. And then I think whenever you're selling through, broker, consultant, reseller type channel, you're dependent on a lot of times your messaging getting delivered to the employer, which is always difficult to not
Yeah.
necessarily deliver it yourself.
Did you ever have a benefits leader that just said, like, ignorance is bliss? I'd rather not know we have an issue.
I, they may not have said it in those words, but I think there was some that certainly probably felt that way.
Yeah, it's like people who avoid taking in their car to get checked
Yeah,
or have an issue health wise. They're like, yeah, well, if I don't see a doctor, I won't get a diagnosis, which obviously can be very,
yeah,
very
there's certainly a little bit of that out
dangerous.
there.
So a lot of unique examples of how we probably have those in our personal lives. What are greatest successes that you're most proud of from your time at Springbuck?
I think the biggest thing is that we really created a channel that was delivering, right? We built the
Mhm.
channel out, and by design, if you do it the right way, then it starts to deliver on its own. I think we had national relationships with, I want to say 12 of the top 20 brokerages in the country. Certainly a little bit of that was there before I got there, but I thought we did a really, really nice job of building out that channel model to where
Mhm.
it was delivering on its own year after year. And then I think that we took a fairly young team that was early on in their career, some, one of their first sales jobs, maybe in some cases their second.
Mhm.
And we taught them how to sell an incredibly difficult thing to sell. I still believe to this day that it will be the hardest thing I ever have to sell or train a team to sell. And I think we did a really nice job of that.
Yeah, Noom's a little easier.
It is. Well, it has its own challenges, but
Yeah, nothing's easy.
nothing's easy, but it's certainly not as technical as the data analytics world.
And I think no one as a benefits leader probably needs to be educated that the increasing obese population, percentage wise, is probably something they know is an issue. You're not bringing something to their attention that they're probably like, I had no idea.
Yeah,
Didn't know that like 35, 40% of our population is pre-diabetic or whatever it may be. So, that's probably makes it a little easier to get your foot in the door. How did Springbuck shape your view on healthcare? Like, I think it's really interesting because you probably had countless clients and you saw what their issues were by like
yeah.
really looking into the data. So I think you were a very informed job seeker at the point you probably decided, hey, like Noom or something else might be the best next place for me because you saw under the hood at probably dozens of different Fortune 1000 companies. So just like how did that change your view on healthcare? Just getting such an in-depth look at the claims data.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's a better place to work to understand healthcare
Mhm.
because it was like you had to touch all parts of it. In some instances, a lot of times we'll say that healthcare is broken in this country. And I think there were instances where you're like, yep, I get it, right? I
Mhm.
see that there's all this data in all these different silos, and an employer just wants to bring it together to make educated, database decisions. And doing that, even though that was the crux of what Springbuck did, was still incredibly difficult to get
Mhm.
that data, to get it in a format that's usable, to get it in a timely manner to where you can actually action off of it. It was a lot. I think a nice lead into to your point is the one thing I did see, because we would bring in data from a lot of different digital health companies. And the two things that always occurred to me was that the adoption was incredibly low. You could have the greatest solution in the world, and if only 2% of employees are using it, it's not really going to bend the cost curve at all.
Mhm.
And then you would see from there, once they start using it, they don't use it terribly long.
Mhm.
And those were the things when we would dive into the data on different digital health or point solutions, however you want to term it. That's really what led me to Noom. When they first reached out, again, I wasn't looking. They talked about that they get 25% of the employees to adopt the program. And most benefits leader, when I tell that to today, are like, they say one of two things. They're like, you mean of like a very small target population, or you're just full of it and you're lying to
Yeah,
me.
or just bullshit, like,
Yeah, yeah.
not lying to me.
Yes, yeah. So it's one of the two, and the reality is it's based off of the entire employee population. and it's not BS. And
Mhm.
I really dove into that. And then I think Noom's other superpower, and we're fortunate that we've had 10 plus million people download our app since our inception, is we study everything they do to get people to come back every day.
Yep.
And right now, 50% of our monthly active users are daily active users, meaning that they log in every single day. And for us to change your behaviors, we need you to keep coming back, right? If you log in once a week, it's
Mhm.
going to be incredibly difficult for us to truly change your behavior so you can have the long-term lasting success. So it was those things after looking at data for years and years that I was like skeptical like everybody else. Can they really do this? I see the Instagram and Facebook ads as Noom, does it have that level of efficacy? And I dug into it. It does. And it's been a pretty incredible ride.
Yeah, you've made tremendous progress in a very short period of time. You've, brought in huge customers, you built out a great team. Everything's looking up and to the right. What were some of the major challenges you experienced? I'm sure it wasn't all butterflies and rainbows to begin with.
Yeah. I remember when, I started, it's been close to 2 years now, that like even Salesforce had just been implemented days prior.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah, because
was,
this is a B2C
yeah,
company that
right.
like started a B2B unit, and you can give us the stats, but I'm sure revenue is pretty close to zero on the B2B side, and you've scaled it a lot since.
Yeah, we're just getting started out. So one, it's when you're trying to grow, you've also got to set the foundation for the growth, but you want to spend your
Mhm.
time out there in meetings and all of that and growing it. But I love that aspect of building it. But certainly we had a very small team when I came here, that we were just trying to get focused on the right things in the right direction. And at the same time, we're a direct to consumer company as well.
Mhm.
And so you're always kind of balancing that, but the Noom brand is frankly incredible. It's like nothing I've ever personally experienced. But I'd say that's the biggest challenges, is that we were, for the most part, there was a small group that I always love to shout out internally that kind of built this up on the Noom side, that made it more than just an idea on the commercial space,
Yeah,
that really got us started, got the first few million of revenue coming in, and set the foundation to where we could really start to grow this.
great. Talk to me about some of those like major accomplishments that you're super proud of.
Yeah, right now there's 10 different health plans we're working with across the company. And we did that with just, one guy. His name is Chris Linto, and he's kind of that really started the commercial side of the business from a sales perspective. And he was a pharma guy for 30 years,
Mhm.
that we started getting emails, frankly, during the pandemic that said, "Hey, I'm a benefits leader. I've had, success with Noom on my own. Would love to buy it for my employees." And he kind of started combing through the inbox and reaching out, and really got us started on the employer side, then pivoted over to the health plan. So there's 10 plus health plans. We cover about 2.6 million members right now. And being around in earnest, our sales reps just started about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
It's really incredible. And then I would say, we've already talked about it, but the team right now is, I could not be happier or luckier to be surrounded by some really, really intelligent people. So we've been very thoughtful about bringing in individuals that are complementary to that have a lot of knowledge where I do not, and some of those
Yeah.
things. And
The
it's been good.
ideal um team structure is like a collage, a mosaic, a puzzle, like all the pieces
Yeah.
mesh and fit together. It's not like just a stack of plates that just like all look the same and just are stacked up on each
Yeah.
other. So
And like I said, the culture part is we brought everybody in that's believing in Noom and where we're trying to go.
Mhm.
So you don't have the conflict. You don't, like, you just have people that want to jump in and figure out a solution for whatever today's problem might be.
What inspires you most about Noom's impact on the world of weight loss management? And are there any patient stories that you can share that
I
just
would
keep you
say,
super excited Monday morning, after a fun weekend with the family?
yeah, I won't give one particular story, although we do have a Slack channel that's frankly dedicated to it, that just
Mhm.
share like customer quotes, and it's pretty neat every single day. I mean, there's new ones coming in about how we've done this and that. The point for me that's been incredible is I still love going to the conferences and all that stuff, right? I always see you guys at Conference Board and Health and all of that. The number of individuals that come up to our booth just to say Noom has changed my life is incredible. And there was one
Mm.
lady that came up, I want to say it was health, probably 2 years ago, and I had just started like a
Mhm.
week or two before that. And she basically said that my husband lost 130 pounds on Noom. She had lost like 50. She started to tear up. Her kids were older. They had been like the entire family was basically losing weight on Noom together. And she got, a little teared up and was just saying how much it changed her life. And the cool part is those stories aren't uncommon, right? Like we
Mhm.
get on calls every day where you're talking with someone that's like, it really has changed my life. I've, battled obesity or pre-obesity my entire life. And this was the one thing that worked for me and I've been able to keep the weight off. So it's really neat when you go to conferences and the entire team says that whenever you go out, just the people that unprovoked come up and tell you how it's changed their lives.
It's incredible, and I think what a lot of people don't really understand and, sometimes overlook is how someone's weight can potentially impact so many other areas of their life. So, like, okay, great. Someone loses weight and aesthetically, like, they look better to
Yeah.
themselves. That's only one piece of it. They're increasing their life expectancy. They're improving the quality of their life because everyone has hobbies, everyone does things. If at a certain age you physically can't do those things anymore, that's the quality of your life over the period of time. There's depression, there's social anxiety. Sometimes people mask their feelings with substance use. Like there's so many
Yeah.
things that are impacted based on self-esteem, how I'm feeling about myself, and usually weight has like a pretty strong correlation with that. So I think it's just so important for, everyone to remember that, weight impacts a lot of things, even musculoskeletal injuries. If you're carrying weight and you have a lot of load on your joints and your bones, like higher risk of potentially getting injuries. There's just so many things that are all tied to that. It's not just like a superficial motivation a lot of the time,
Yeah.
for people participating in these programs. You have to really look at it holistically. GLP-1s are all the rage right now. Like in the last 2 years, it has exploded. Companies are coming out of the woodwork. Hey, we can address weight management. We can solve your GLP-1 crisis. We can bend the cost curve. I can literally think of dozens of companies that I've never heard
Yeah.
of pop out and say, hey, we can do this. And companies that come from very different backgrounds are now like throwing their hat in the ring and be like, oh, we can do GLP-1 management and distribution also. Why is Noom's approach really unique? And what do you do that only very few other vendors can?
Yeah. The answer is not going to be terribly sexy. It's because
Mhm.
we didn't have to change who we were.
Yeah.
Noom has been doing behavior change for it's going on 17 years now. And since the beginning, our focus was around changing individuals' behavior.
Hmm.
And you'll see a lot of companies that have been around for a long time are now flipping to their talk tracks around behavior change. And it's what we've always been when it was not necessarily the case. To your point, there's a new competitor that pops up every day that I'll see on LinkedIn and whatever it might be. And the reality is behavior change is probably one of the most difficult things an individual will do, right? They're going to take bad habits and change them to good behaviors. And
Hmm.
so our belief ultimately is that we are experts in this. We are masters of motivation. Because of that 15 plus years, we've ran thousands of experiments to figure out how to help individuals to keep coming back every day to change their behaviors for good. We're certainly doing a lot around innovation, around GLP-1s. We have a GLP-1 companion that just came out recently, and it
Hmm.
was purpose built, part of our standard weight program. We had long discussions. We chose not to charge for it. It's something that we think the market should have. That ultimately, if a physician is prescribing you a GLP-1, and these are life-changing medications, sadly, they only know what happens inside those four walls or virtual walls of that doctor's office. And there's still a lot more that goes to it, right? Just because you're not as hungry because the medication doesn't mean you're making healthier decisions and all that. So
Hmm.
our goal is to support them in that journey with the medication, by giving them the content, the coaching, the community, and all the things that they would need to be successful if they are going to be taking medication.
Yep. I think behavior change is what makes something sustainable. I'll use a personal example. This used to drive me crazy, and now it's just something I've learned to live with. My dad, for most of my childhood, was like big guy, obese, very overweight. And, we loved him and we love him. And like we wanted him to improve his health because we wanted him to be there for our
Right.
lives. And when me and my sisters planned to have kids, and it was like, we want them to be able to meet my dad. So he ended up, about maybe 15 years ago getting gastric bypass surgery. And he used to drive me nuts. He, couldn't eat a lot, but like he was still eating the same shit. Like,
Yeah.
he was eating potato chips, he was eating fried chicken, he was eating ice cream, cookies, and he just couldn't eat enough calories to like maintain or gain weight. He would lose weight, but like he wasn't eating healthier foods. He was saving room for his guilty pleasures. He wasn't eating a whole lot of fruit and vegetables. And I think my mom's been a good influence over him. And he started to, eat a little healthier over the last handful of years. But, I've seen that recently with not only like gastric bypass patients, but now like GLP-1 users. It's like you're on these medications, you can't eat a whole lot, but you're still eating jelly beans. You're still
Yeah.
eating, cookies from the processed food aisle. Like you're not necessarily putting nutrients into your body. You're just literally not putting enough calories in your body to, gain any weight. You're actually losing weight, even though you're eating crappy. So I think it is really important. You can look a certain way, but if you're not putting like the right nutrients into your body and exercising and changing behavior, it's still not looking good on the inside. And I would think probably blood work, would agree with that. So, just something always to remember, health is not just how you look, it's also how you feel. And, a lot of that is activity and, what you're eating, what you're putting into your body. Walk me through your vision for Noom. You own a lot of responsibility. You own sales, client success, employer, health plan sales, marketing, strategy, ops, probably missing a couple areas. What do you see as the next 5 years for Noom? Like, what are you doing now, and what are you going to do for patients and customers over these next handful of years?
Yeah. It would be crazy to not make GLP-1s part of that, right? Like they
Mhm.
have changed our healthcare system in ways we probably don't even know yet. I mean, there was a study that came out that Walmart's selling less groceries because of, and that just kind of blew my mind, like how big this really was.
Mhm.
Um, so I think we will always be cognizant of that. And again, our goal is to be the app that's utilized alongside these medications to deliver the best results, the
Mhm.
overall efficacy. So that will be at the forefront of it. What I love here is we have a product roadmap where we're continually innovating, um, even like small things like photo. It sounds small, but like photo food logging. Like right now, and I was testing it out the other day. It's crazy. You can take a picture of your food and it will log all of the ingredients and it gets it right. Like it's crazy to me. I'm not smart enough to understand how it all works, but these are things that it doesn't sound that big. But if you think about it, logging your food is one of the main hiccups that would tell you not to come back to Noom. It's like, it's a pain. I don't want to do all this.
Saves a ton of time,
Yeah.
and I love this company. I'm not going to name them because, this was years ago. I'm sure their product over time probably has maybe added this type of functionality. But in using it, I saw improvement in symptoms, but it was time consuming to like, hey, write down every
Yeah.
ingredient. Like that's a huge time saver.
Yeah. So little things like that. We'll be bringing out additional products around more cardiometabolic, so like diabetes, hypertension, things like that. But we're going to stay focused on our verticals. We really go after the employer space, go after the health plan, and are standing up the health systems right now. And
Mhm.
we're having an incredible amount of success there early on, where these physicians are saying exactly what our thesis was: is we need somebody to support us within that realm. We need to know and understand what's happening outside of our office. So my hope is over the next 5 years, we're going to keep growing. Certainly as a company, we have some goals on where we're trying to go, but it's my focus is growth, and always looking a few quarters ahead to make sure we're doing all the right things.
Any favorite customer story, whether that be an employer or a health plan?
So my favorite right now is actually a partnership that we just announced with Accolade.
Okay.
Um, and I think there's a press release out there if you're interested, but the reason I would say is my favorite is I've gotten into partnerships previously in my career that using the word partnership was probably disrespectful to the word partnership. That, you get into these things, nothing really comes of it. And we put together in over, months and months and meetings, a solution that I think is really, really going to help the market, especially Accolade's clients right now around GLP-1s. And it was just a really thoughtful program that we put
Mhm.
together that is beneficial not only to us, to Accolade, but ultimately their clients.
Mhm.
And that's something I was really proud of because there was days where I didn't know if we were going to do it. I didn't know if we would just go get in a partnership that was just
Mhm.
a partnership to say it. But like we really put together an awesome program that I think their clients are going to love and certainly helps us out.
What do you see as the biggest challenges a sales leader faces today? Like you've managed for a long time, you managed pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID. I think there's a lot of vendor fatigue right now. Like what's the biggest challenges you feel you and your peers at other companies in the industry experience right now?
Yeah, I think in this economy there has to be an ROI. There has to be performance guarantees behind that ROI. There's too many employers that have been burned over the last how many ever years that they really need that. But I
Mhm.
think that many of us grew up in this world where you met with people in their office, you built relationships, you went to dinner, you did some of those things. And I'm not saying that that's dead, but so much is done over Zoom meeting. You really have to change what your approach is. And you've got to make sure that that presentation, whether it's a demo or slide deck or whatever it is, can keep their attention because we all know that Slack or messaging's in the background and emails are right there. And it's so easy for your prospect to just focus on something else. So I think
Yeah.
that is one of the hardest things we face. Vendor fatigue, to your point, is real. I mean, you talk to a broker consultant, they get hundreds, if not thousands, of calls a week. How
Mhm.
do they sort through all that to figure out the efficacy? In my little space around weight management, there's vendors that come up every single day that sometimes there's stats that I don't know how, like, you have stats when you just became
Mhm.
a company, but like there's a lot that you have to sort through to get to the right solutions. And it's difficult to not only get the initial meeting, although we're fortunate at Noom because of our brand,
Yeah.
but then when you have them, if you only have them for 30 minutes, you really got to deliver on the value prop and make sure it's clear. Because if you confuse them or lose their attention, they're going to be gone.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of senior, very veteran salespeople that, the presentation was just one component of
Yeah.
the sale. But some of them would be like, hey, I close those deals when we go out to the fancy steak dinner and we're enjoying a nice bottle of wine, or we're on the golf course, or I take them boating, or, entertaining, wining and
Yeah.
dining, that type of thing. It's like if your presentation isn't good, you're not getting that
Yeah. You're not
opportunity
getting there.
to get the face time. So you might be really good at that stage, but if you don't get there, you can't close it. You can't build that relationship that way. So I think a lot of sales has really become preparation and getting your ducks in the row and being organized so that you can show the value at the end. But like without the first, you're not getting to the second step.
Yep.
And that's been a rude awakening for some folks that have been ultra successful before, but might not have changed with the times. Anything else that you think is really crucial for, especially in health and benefits, that like a salesperson has or learns in a short period of time that will make them successful in this space in particular, that might not be as big of a deal in other industries?
Um, I was never this way previously. I'm more focused on hiring somebody that was maybe, let's say, up and coming and may not have had experience in healthcare, and kind of teaching them that business. I don't know if you have that time anymore.
Mhm.
I think everything is, we've got to prove it now, we've got to move now. And I think, especially when you're working through brokers, consultants, if you don't understand what you're talking about, they're going to sniff that out pretty
Yeah.
early on and you're kind of dead on arrival. So I do think it's really important to have a pretty baseline understanding of the industry, the main players that you're going against, kind of the differentiators and all that. Because if you come in there, just knowing how to present your few slides and every time they ask a question, you're searching for answers, they're probably not going to waste their time.
Yeah. You often tell your team to focus continuously on getting better, and there's so much in sales that is out of your control. So focus on the areas that we can control. What does that look like in action, in practice?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Sometimes I admittedly lose vision of that. But for me, I really work with my team on spending 30 minutes a day getting better.
Hmm.
And it's something that I personally live by, that when I wake up, I spend my first 30 minutes. And it's not reading or doing the Noom pitch or setting up a prospecting list or something like that. It's 30 minutes on learning the industry, learning your craft. When you extrapolate that out over a year, I think it's like a little over 5 days you would have spent like
Hmm.
solely focused on getting better 24 hours a day over 5 days. And that's something that I really try to harp with the sales team when talking with them, is because you focus on your pitch, you prospect, you do all that, and you do so much work to get the meeting, and then you just don't have the broad set of knowledge or skills maybe that you'd wished you had spent some time on. So I think it's easy to forget that. Again, we do it in 30 minutes a day. Mine personally is when I wake up. Everybody does it different. We ask them to kind of put it on their calendar and block it off. Just work on getting better. And to the point, you can do everything right in a sale and still lose it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so much out of your control, and the individual next to you could fall backwards into a big deal that they didn't deserve, and that's just kind of the way it goes. So I'm a big fan of trying to control what you can, because there's so much outside of it that you won't be able to.
Yep. 100%. That's great advice. Really, really love that. What advice would you give newer sales leaders that might be like early in their sales leadership journey, or people that want to become a manager that are just like a top seller? Like, what are some things they might want to consider before making that leap?
I would say make sure before you make the leap that's really what you want to do. Don't do it because it's like, well, I've been selling for years. Now I want to move into management leadership. Oftentimes the best sales reps would not be great leaders. And it's a testament to why they're so good at sales. So you just have to make sure that's truly what you want, because it is a very, very different world. That there's certainly some things that, attributes that carry over, but there's more differences than things that are alike. From there, I think the biggest lesson I learned is, and I probably still have, I certainly haven't mastered it, is not doing it for them, right? I
Mhm.
remember when I first started at Paychex in the leadership, I had a rep that was struggling, and I just thought, well, if I could just go sell all her deals for her, she's going to have a great number. My team's going to look amazing. We're going to hit the number and all this. And I did that, and I got to the end of the year, and I'm like, she didn't learn anything. I didn't teach her anything. She's not better. It's not sustainable for me to go
Mhm.
do this. So I think early on, if you've been in sales, you're so focused on like grabbing onto a deal and taking it from start to finish, that sometimes you've got to learn to take a step back and make sure you're teaching them. And you might lose something in the short term,
Yeah.
but ultimately it'll work out better in the long.
Yeah, and what you mentioned before around just like getting better every day, I saw something on Instagram. I have all types of inspirational public figures talking all the time and hearing snippets from them. And what someone mentioned is what's so hard and why so few people continue to succeed and never plateau is once you get to a certain level, you have to work 100% just to improve 1% a day. You got to be so focused and keep grinding just to get a little bit better. And like you won't see it immediately, but if that compounds and you do it daily, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the gap is huge.
Yeah.
But like just to be already pretty good and still work your ass off just to get 1% better is a hard concept for a lot of people to understand. So it's a good mentality to live by. The other thing you do incredibly well is build great culture. I think people are very loyal to you, people like working for you. You've continuously had people follow you to different companies. And I don't think that's because they're gluttons for misery and they enjoy it. So, what do you do that really helps build great cultures on great teams?
I just I appreciate that, because I do take great pride in it, and I would
Mhm.
say, if it's not my greatest strength, it's what I want to be my greatest strength.
Mhm.
Part of it is this is cliche, but leading by example, right? Like I'm not going to let somebody outwork me, right? Like I'm not going to sit up here and tell everybody to do this while I'm not working. Like I will work my tail off. Outside of that is I am who I am, and I kind of refuse to change it, right? Like I won't try to go to like a board meeting and act like I'm somebody that, probably to a fault. I'm sure there's times our CEO's like, all right, You don't have to always be exactly who you are. But like I'm honest with people, and I just, I joke around, I have fun. If we're going to spend all this time at work, I'd love to have some fun doing it. So not everything's serious. I'm understanding of, this is not an exact science. And
Mhm.
ultimately, I'm leading by example and in just creating the environment, frankly, that I want to work in and have fun in. And then it's, hiring is the most difficult part of the job, I would say. And making sure that we find people that align with the culture, that believe in the same things that I do, having people like you guys that I trust. And that's a really big piece of it, is just getting people, or, again, this is all cliches, it feels like, but people that, we're kind of like a little small family together, and know that I have their back. And my belief is if I have their back, everything works out for the company.
That's great. This is kind of a podcast for healthcare benefits nerds. We don't have a wide audience, but like the fans that do like us, like listen every week. A lot of them are very entrepreneurial. A lot of them have like either started their own companies or have ideas to start their own companies. So, what advice would you give potential entrepreneurs before they start a business, like in this specific industry that we know and love?
Yeah. So I would say do your diligence as much as you can up front. Sadly, there's too many stories of companies that started, they didn't have a true value prop. They didn't have the ability to create an ROI in the long run. And I think in today's healthcare industry, you can't go out there with kind of a soft ROI or numbers that
Mhm.
don't make sense. So I would really do the diligence. I would have mentors. I am not personally someone that I think I've piggybacked on the efforts of other entrepreneurs, which has
Mhm.
been amazing for me, I guess, because of my risk tolerance. But then I would say if you are going to start the business, surround yourself with really smart people and
Mhm.
allow them to do what they're good at. I have seen times where the entrepreneur and understanding it is their baby, but sometimes they don't have the ability to kind of relinquish the reins a little bit. And if you hire really smart people, let them be really smart.
I don't care what sport you're playing, if you're gripping the bat, golf club, hockey stick, lacrosse stick too tight, probably not going to get the best result.
No, my drive is proof of that. So yeah, it's fair.
um, you've worked with some really incredible entrepreneurs. What are the most crucial traits a founder must have to be successful?
I think the biggest thing that I've been impressed with everyone I've ever worked with is their ability to take a risk. It's kind of foreign to me, like the way I grew up. My dad worked at GE for 50 years. And so even when I told my dad I was going into sales, the look on his face was like, what is wrong with you? So just their ability to take a leap off of an idea has been just incredible to me. From there, I think the belief in the idea, where there's so many times and obstacles where you can give up, it's not getting traction, it's not doing that. So just the ability to fight through all that, because there's going to be hiccups along the way. I mean, huge hiccups where
Mhm.
you're going to want to shut it down. And I'm just impressed that with Rod at Springbuck, Seju and Artem here at Noom, now Jeff's taking over the reins. Like it's a lot, and it is mind blowing to me. The Noom story of Seju and Artem basically starting this in an apartment and seeing what it is today, and
Mhm.
the obstacles they had throughout to get through. Like I would have, I would have probably given up many times throughout. So that's why I piggyback off of those that are willing to take the jump.
I literally just saw a clip of the NVIDIA CEO and founder, and they asked him if you had to do it again, would you? He's like, no. Like it was not worth what.
Yeah,
And he's like, many, many, many times billionaire. Works for and started like the most successful company in tech, and it's been the darling of the S&P 500 for a long time now. And he's like, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have done it. Even though he was the most successful, or one
yeah,
of the most successful entrepreneurs in the last 100 years. So I think that was just very telling. Like the sacrifice you got to make is just immense. So, you run commercial for a company really revolutionizing the behavior change market when it comes to health and wellness. How do you practice what you preach? Like, how do you participate in wellness? How do you exercise? How do you reduce stress in, a job that you probably don't have a whole lot of free time?
yeah. So I would say the nice part is that Noom, we have benefits that help us with that. So I have a personal trainer that I meet with 3 times a week. that our wellness program is a big help in my ability to do that. I prioritize it. It's on my calendars, don't allow it to be blocked over, which is great. Started doing it about the time I got to Noom. I'm a washed up old athlete, or at least like to think I am. And so I had, gotten out of practice for a while, and it's been really good the past couple of years to be lifting again and doing all that. I also play basketball once a week, which is, I should probably give up. I tore my ACL a few years ago, but I still keep trying. So yeah, it's not great, but we're trying.
Hey, Indiana, hoops is king.
Yeah, it's all we know. We eat, sleep, and breathe hoops. So yeah, I still try to play, and then whenever I can, I try to golf as much as possible. But
that's great.
That's easier said than done.
And I'm sure you'll agree with this, especially for what your company does. What you put into your body is a huge determining factor into longevity and blood work and just general health. You're on the road a lot. You got a busy job. You don't have a whole lot of free time. Any quick, healthy recipes either you yourself or your family makes at home that might inspire someone who listens or watches this to, try something new that they didn't think of before?
To inspire them to try something new. That is good.
Like a recipe or an idea, something that's a common, like, last minute dinner hack in the
So I will tell you what I eat for what I eat for dinner probably 2 to 3 times a week, and it's not impressive at all, but it is quick, especially with the time that I have. I'll do it for lunch a lot too, but I will just brown up ground turkey with peppers and onions, and then I'll throw like carrots and pea pod. I could just throw as many vegetables as I can find, frankly, in the fridge. I'll brown it up, throw those in there, saute it all, and then put it over rice.
Sounds pretty good.
And I have a hot sauce problem, which I put hot sauce on everything, whether that's good or bad, I guess is TBD. But
I think it increases metabolism and it increases satiety, like feeling full. So I think it's a good thing.
And I tell myself if it's hot enough, I'll drink more water. So then I'm getting all my water in that I need
to. That's good too. Yeah, I like it. Anytime you're just eating like fresh, healthy food from your house, it's going to be more healthy than going out to eat.
And that's always been, to your point, I spend a great deal of my life on the road. And that is the struggle when you're out on the road, is how do you make better decisions, which fortunately I have Noom alongside me to help out.
Well, you made some great decisions personally and professionally joining Noom. You're killing it. You're doing great. Company's doing awesome. Couldn't be happier for you and the team you've built, and continue to knock the cover off the ball, and can't wait to continue to watch your and your team's success. So again, thank you for joining us on the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast. And Cody, have a good day, and maybe we'll have you on later in the next couple of years to hear about the progress.
I hope so. And I appreciate all your guys' help throughout. It's been great.
Of course, buddy. Thank you.
All right, see you, man.
Thank you for joining. Please like, comment, and subscribe below if you enjoyed it.